on this computer. Now it started. Well, this topic I think is is not that complex as others, of course. Other topics that took the whole hour. I think this probably is going to take 10 minutes. And when I first started in this team, and I didn't know anything about Swift, they told me there were classes and structures, and they were very similar, but I never understood the difference until I was working on this course, which is the Udemy course, the Complete iOS App Development Bootcamp, and every one of you can take it if you're interested in to going deeper into the Swift language. Um, Basically, uh, of course, they are very similar. We are going to create footprints of of or something that is an abstraction of the real world that we are going to represent in code. That's the definition uh, by dictionary, if we want to say it. The Apple documentation tells us that every time we are going to start, instead of using classes, we should use an struct. But if we want more complex implementations like inheritance or or doing, I don't have a specific example, but Objective C operations, we need to use classes. Um, and the big difference is that the structures are immutable. You cannot change them, uh, but you use a method inside the structure called uh, mutating. And what this does is that it destroys the structure that exists and then create a new one from zero. Um, but classes are a reference, and I'm going to make an example in Xcode. I'm going to create a new playground. I think I'm going to give the most basic example that most of uh, most courses and classes show when you enter object-oriented programming. So I'm going to create a mammal. Uh, well, I create this strict mammal. My idea is to show you that it cannot inheritance to a more specific class or a subclass like dogs, because dogs are more specific than mammals. I'm going to instantiate it. and we need this init.
You need to add the keyword in the line 10.
Oh,
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Daisy. The first time we run playground is slow. Yeah, we have an example of of a mammal that have 5 years old. At the end is an animal. And now, if we wanted to create a more specific, like a dog, we cannot use struct to inheritance it. The only thing that structs can inheritance are protocols, which are like methods or functions, but just with the contracts, no anything else. But instead, you can create a class. Now the class can inheritance the struct. So this is a big difference. And oh well. And oh yeah, we can only inheritance classes and protocols, not structs. If we want to have this functionality of inheritance, we need to have a class. Now we can inheritance. And another very important thing about this is the difference that we have values in the structs, but classes are by, again, inheritance. And so I'm going to give one more example. I'm going to create a method to give one more year of life. Years equal years plus 1. We are going to have an error. Oh well.
Here is your line 4 is let instead of bar. It's immutable.
Mm.
Line 4, you have a let years. And let years means is immutable.
Oh yeah. Well, now we have this bar, and if we want to change it in structs, as I explained before, we cannot do it because structs cannot change themselves. When we instantiate them, what I said before is that if we want to change them, they will be destroyed, and then we create a new struct. And to can do this, we have to use this method, mutating function. Now we can use methods to change values from the struct inside. And my final example is going to be when you do these changes, what's the difference between a class and a struct? I'm going to create 2 animals. animal 1 bar animal 2. So we create a variable of animal which has 5 years and another animal 2, and we give the value of the animal 1. But we create two different animals when we are using structs. So we create this variable and we do modifications or changes. Oh, I'm going to put to charge my headphones. Okay, if we do operations on this variable that was created based on the first one, it's not going to affect the first variable. I'm going to give here this example. Uh, the animal 1 has 5 years and the second one has 6 years. And now I'm going to create the same functionality but with a class and see what's happened to see what happens. Mammal class. If something is not clear, you can ask in each moment any doubts. I'm almost done with what I wanted to show you, the big difference between classes and structs. Now we want to print both. Oh yeah, I have to mention that this mutating uh, keyword is only for structs because they destroy themselves. But with classes, this is not necessary. Oh, okay. Now, this is the big difference between classes and structs. Uh, I don't know if anyone have a doubt with this. I'm going to explain it, but if from right here there is any question from anyone, no? Well, so in this part that we are working with the struct, oh, we have as an output two different values. Why? When we create this instance of the struct and then create this another one based on this one, it doesn't matter because we create a new value type. That's why when we do operations on this one is not related to the animal 1. So in this one we have 5 years and the animal 1, and in the animal 2 we do an operation to add one more year of life, and at the end it only affects the animal 2. That's why we have the animal 1 with 5 years and the next one with 6 years. But when we're talking about clauses, we had references. So when we create this animal tree, which have 10 years, and then create an animal for that is that is equal to this animal, we have a reference value. So anything we do to any one of these two variables is going to affect the reference that we have to this class. That's why that we only made something to the animal for. We added one more year, but at the end they are the two reference, but for to the same class. And that's why at the end both have 11 years when we only uh, make the operation for the animal for. Mm, and I'm pretty sure that if we want to only modify one, we have to create a new instance of the class. Now you see that is not affected. But if we do this, then we copy the reference. With the structs, this doesn't happen because we create new value types. And I'm not sure if this was clear, this very important difference. I don't know if it's
Clear for me.
more doubts there or there notes, but I think this is the most important thing. Here are just some pictures to explain that we have the reference from the animals to the same class, but in the case of structs, we create new values. That's why if we modify one, it doesn't affect the other one. But in classes, we have this connection by the reference type. That's all that I was thinking to show to you. I don't know if there's any doubt or questions or what you think about the presentation. I know it's simple, but I was very confused when I began with this, but with this big difference, now I think it was clear for me. I just want to know if it's clearer for you now, this difference.
I think this is valuable. Do we are developing in Swift, and it's very valuable to know what happened with this variable. If we are mutating them uh, in this way, we are able to identify that we could affect other section if we, as an example, if we are working with output params or other types of unclean code examples as what I made. I think this as an example, knowing that of course the compiler is going to tell us that if we were trying to make some inheritance on some class or other, but it's important also identify that as a convention, as you mentioned at the beginning, all classes starts being an struct, then we need to mutate them to be in a class as the complexity increases. So thank you so much, Ubud. I think I appreciate your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. So I think that's all for my part. I don't know if someone want to I'm going to stop the recording.